A drone fired by Hezbollah evaded Israel's air defense systems and hit the dining hall of an IDF base during the evening meal, killing 4 soldiers and wounding another 58 on the same day as Hezbollah terrorists surrendered and allowed himself to be taken prisoner in Lebanon. Also, in the last 24 hours, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu asked United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres to get the United Nations interim force in Lebanon peacekeepers out of harm's way as they are serving no useful purpose. But Guterres is refusing, insisting that the United Nations flag continues to fly in southern Lebanon. The IDF continues to operate in the north of the Gaza Strip, and the end of Hamas is drawing near. Elsewhere, the United States is signaling that it will soon deploy the Terminal High-Altitude Air Defense System to Israel to defend against possible Iranian ballistic missile attacks, while the United States and the European Union impose new sanctions on Iran in reaction to their transfer of missiles and other weapons to Russia. Let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on the 374th day of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the militias in Iraq and Syria, and everybody under the direction of the Iranian regime. Before we start, please take a second to click on the subscribe button so that you will never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel and help us reach 1 million subscribers before the end of this year. In the last 24 hours, IDF forces operated in the Gaza Strip, attacking about 40 terrorist targets and destroying most of them. The forces of Division 162 continue to operate in the Jabalia area, destroying the launchers that fired rockets at Ashkelon, an Israeli city, over the weekend, as well as eliminating several terrorists and capturing stocks of weapons and ammunition. On Sunday evening, Israelis got a nasty surprise in the form of a Hezbollah-fired UAV that managed to evade our air defense system and hit an IDF training base near the community of Binyamin. 4 soldiers were killed and 58 others were wounded, many of them seriously. The UAV was being tracked by the air defense radar, but it was not intercepted. No, there was no alarm at the base to alert the soldiers of an incoming threat, and the IDF is investigating why these mistakes happened. What we know so far is that this UAV was one of 2 launched by Hezbollah from Lebanon, from the Lebanese territory, that went out over the Mediterranean Sea before approaching Israel's coast from the west. They were apparently the Zayad 107 model, and one of them was intercepted off the coast of Nahariya. The other one was being tracked and pursued by a fixed-wing aircraft and helicopters, but somehow they lost contact and it hit its target. The other one was being tracked and pursued by fixed-wing aircrafts and helicopters, but somehow they lost contact and it hit its target. A word of explanation about the drone is also in order here. The Zayad 107 has a flight range of about 100 kilometers and a wingspan of 1.5 to 2 meters. UAVs of this type penetrated Israel's airspace many times during this war and caused damage to sites and buildings. Because of the threat that they pose, they have been a high priority target to the campaign of airstrikes on Hezbollah positions in Lebanon, which has been ongoing over the past year. Hezbollah issued a statement that the strike was in revenge for all the Israeli airstrikes against them, particularly in Beirut, the capital of Lebanon. The statement concluded by declaring that Hezbollah can still protect Lebanon and its people. Be that as it may, I can tell you that the soldiers of the Golani Brigade, whose commanders were targeted in this strike, will not be intimidated or deterred from carrying out their mission. Hezbollah is already losing this war on their way to being completely destroyed, and one more UAV attack which manages to cause a few IDF casualties isn't going to change any of that. Now, I want to give you a few statistics that make this point. And I know that Hezbollah members and supporters watch these videos, so I want you to pay specific attention to this part. Since Hezbollah began firing rockets into Israel on October 8th, starting a fight with Israel that there was no good reason for them to start, there have been thousands of interceptions. In the last 24 hours, there was another 200 interceptions. There have also been hundreds of interceptions of UAVs, drones. A handful of weapons have penetrated Israel's air defense systems, but the overwhelming majority have not. Meanwhile, the Air Force has relentlessly pounded Hezbollah targets in Lebanon without interference, and the results of this air campaign speak for themselves. Also, as everyone knows, the IDF has also launched a ground incursion into southern Lebanon, systematically destroying the Hezbollah terror infrastructure there and eliminating large numbers of Hezbollah fighters while suffering very few casualties among our own troops. In short, Hezbollah is hopelessly outmatched by the IDF, and although Israel is taking some hits and suffering some damage, there can be no doubt about how this war will end. Speaking of which, already yesterday morning, the IDF intensified its operations in southern Lebanon, and that explained the loud echoes of explosions heard overnight by people in western Galilee, that's the north of Israel. Hezbollah has made irresponsible calls for Lebanese civilians to return to these areas while the fighting is still going on, so that they will have more human shields to hide behind. The IDF spokesperson's office has issued statements in Arabic urging the Lebanese civilians to stay away until it is safe for them to return. Several IDF units report making contact with Hezbollah in the last 24 hours, and they also report that the Hezbollah fighters prefer to fight, often at close range, and this results in their rapid elimination. These terrorists are off the battlefield permanently, out of circulation, and no longer a threat to Israel or the Lebanese people. The IDF is finding their tunnels packed with weapons and ammunition and destroying them one by one. Rocket launching sites, firing positions, and other terrorist infrastructures are also being demolished. Sadly, many of these tunnels and weapons are located in civilian homes and villages. Hezbollah placed their military infrastructure in these areas deliberately, and Hezbollah is responsible for the destruction of these homes and villages, which is necessary so that they cannot be used to target Israelis. Before we move on, I want to ask you today, more than ever, to help us and share the truth. You can do that by subscribing to this YouTube channel and by supporting us financially so that we can create more videos like this one. If you want to support us, you can go to our website at www.tbnisrael.com/give, or you can also click the donate button on YouTube. In recent days, the IDF recovered intelligence materials in southern Lebanon, and it also took a Hezbollah terrorist as prisoner. This man surrendered to the IDF emerging from a tunnel with his hands raised at the urging of Unit 504 investigators who took him into custody and interrogated him. The terrorist held something in his hands as he emerged from the tunnel, and the soldiers asked him what it was. He replied that it was socks and hesitated at the tunnel entrance. The soldiers, the Israeli soldiers, who did not want to wait around forever for this terrorist to make up his mind about whether he wanted to surrender or not, called to him in Arabic saying, "We are waiting for you. Do you also want a cigarette with coffee and $5,000? Then, when he appeared to be making up his mind, they again said, "Put your hands out slowly. Come out. Don't be afraid. Hands on your head. Come out to me." After a bit more thinking, the terrorist did indeed come out of the tunnel and was giving the promised cigarette and coffee, clothes to wear, food to eat, and a medical examination before he was interrogated. I don't know if he got the promised $5,000, but I doubt it. In any case, after taking this prisoner into custody, the IDF soldiers surrounded a nearby building, explored the tunnel shaft under it, and located an underground complex at a depth of about 7 meters and 50 meters long. This space was set up so Hezbollah terrorists could stay there in relative comfort for a long period of time. There was furniture in the bunker, as well as stocks of food, water, and other necessities. Meanwhile, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and the head of the IDF Strategy Division, Major General Eliezer Toledano, held a review on Sunday morning with the Security Cabinet. At this meeting, the progress in the battles against Hezbollah was presented, including the capture of large quantities of weapons, ammunition, and military equipment that Hezbollah had placed in bunkers and tunnels near the border to prepare for an invasion of the Galilee in the northern part of Israel. Gallant, the Israeli defense minister, also declared during his meeting that Hezbollah has less than a third of the rockets and missiles that it had at the beginning of this war. He added a breakdown of these statistics, saying that Hezbollah has launched more than 14,000 rockets and many more have been destroyed by the Israeli Air Force strikes. When asked about the IDF's military power, Gallant said that there were many gaps between what was needed and what was available when he entered the Ministry of Defense, and already before the war he ordered these gaps to be filled. Today, according to him, we still depend on air weapons and American planes, but we are working with all our might to promote blue and white local production and the development of independence on the issue of arms. In related news, yesterday, following recent incidents where IDF troops have fired near positions of the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, or UNIFIL, the Prime Minister's office published a statement. He acknowledged the criticism of these incidents by United States and European governments, but added that they should be blaming Hezbollah for these incidents, as the peacekeeping troops have been allowed to become hostages of Hezbollah.
Mr. Secretary General, get the UNIFIL forces out of harm's way. It should be done right now, immediately.
In a direct statement of United Nations General Secretary Antonio Guterres, he declared that the time has come for you to remove UNIFIL from Hezbollah's strongholds and areas of combat, and do it immediately. Your refusal to evacuate the UNIFIL soldiers makes them hostages of Hezbollah. This endangers both them and the lives of our soldiers. We regret the injury of the UNIFIL soldiers and do everything in our power to prevent this injury. Guys, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on developments in the war against Hezbollah going forward. But please continue to help us spread the truth and stay updated in real time. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and go to our website at tbnisrael.com/news, where we bring you articles and updates in real time about what is happening in Israel. You can also look for TBN Israel on social media, and you will never miss another update from this war. Switching our focus now to the ongoing conflict in the Gaza Strip. The 98th Division, under the command of Brigadier General Dan Goldfuss, has been fighting in the Jabalia area for the past few weeks, during which they located several bodies of hostages who apparently died in captivity. This is the first time that the IDF has maneuvered into the heart of Jabalia, with previous rounds of fighting taking place on the outskirts of the city. After dismantling the layers of defense in the city and the village, the Paratroopers Brigade combat team, under the command of Colonel Ami Biton, has been focusing since last Monday in the heart of the Jabalia refugee camp. Brigade officials reported neutralizing more than 85 terrorists in the camp alone. Until the ground maneuver to Jabalia, security officials estimated that there was one Hamas battalion in the area, but as the fighting intensified and the intelligence picture came into focus, it became clear that remnants of 3 different Hamas battalions were fighting in Jabalia against Division 98. Most of the terrorists were gathered in the area after fleeing from other places. Some of them moved under the ground and some above it. When the IDF forces began to enter the refugee camp, they were met with dozens of anti-tank missiles fired at them by Hamas terrorists. Small arms fire, explosives, mines, snipers, and other weapons were also directed at the Israeli troops. But they passed on, knowing that most of the civilian population of the area had already been evacuated, and they had a job to do of destroying the remaining Hamas forces. In the weeks since, they have made great progress in completing this mission. just as they completed all the previous missions. The forces of Division 162 also continued their activities in the Jabalia region, and during the last day, more than 10 terrorists were eliminated in airstrikes and in the encounters of the fighters in the field. At the same time, in the south of the Gaza Strip, the forces of the Gaza Division continued to operate alongside forces from the Nahal Brigade and the Air Force. The complete destruction and elimination of Hamas is within sight. The IDF has ordered all civilians in the northern third of the Gaza Strip, including Gaza City, to move into humanitarian zones further north. Anyone who remains in the north will be considered a combatant and treated accordingly. A new civil administration for the civilian population of the Gaza Strip is also being prepared, which will effectively split the territory into northern and southern departments. A lot of work remains to be done before this plan can be implemented, and many changes are likely to be made before a final move is made. However, an official with details of the plan so far told AP that parts of the program have already been implemented without specifying which parts. A second source, an Israeli, said that Netanyahu read and studied the plan, and like many plans that came to him throughout the war, but he did not say whether it was decided to act in one way or another. According to the United Nations, no trucks of food, water, or medicine have entered the northern Gaza Strip since September 30th. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on any developments on the front against Hamas. So please continue to spread the truth, share these videos on YouTube, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. We want to reach 1 million subscribers before the end of this year. To conclude today's report, I bring you news of an American plan to deploy batteries of the Terminal High Altitude Air Defense System, THAAD for short, to Israel to defend against the possibility of another barrage of ballistic missiles from Iran. It will be operated by American soldiers, and reports in the media say that around 3,000 US troops will be stationed in Israel for this mission. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has implicitly threatened to harm the American forces operating in Israel in a post on X. He referred to the possible arrival of the THAAD system, saying the United States is endangering the lives of its people by placing an American missile system in Israel. Although we have made enormous efforts in recent days to reduce the possibility of an all-out war in the region, I must say we have no red lines in the protection of our people and our assets. Thanks for the tip, Abbas. When the THAAD system is in place, it will provide a significant new layer to Israel's air defense network. It is also a mobile, high-altitude defense system, similar in its capabilities to the Arrow system. It also has capabilities to intercept missiles outside the atmosphere using kinetic energy to target different parts of the enemy's missile paths, as well as other threats. This system has already been proven in combat, shooting down a missile fired at the United Arab Emirates by the Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen. This happened in January 2022. Even as it moves to deploy the THAAD system to Israel, the United States also imposes new sanctions on Iran's oil and gas sector, according to the Bloomberg News agency. The goal, deterring the Chinese buyers of the oil and expanding the fight against Iranian financing of the proxy organizations in the world, including Hezbollah and the Houthis in Yemen. EU countries have also imposed new sanctions on Iran in recent days to punish them for supplying weapons to Russia for use in its war against Ukraine. I would like to conclude by paying my respects to Sergeant Omri Tamari, Sergeant Yosef Hayeb, Sergeant Yoav Agmon, and Sergeant Alon Amitai, who were killed in last night's drone strike. All 4 soldiers were 19 years old and in the middle of training for their roles in the infantry ranks of the IDF. So guys, please continue to spread the truth. This is a war of deception, and the enemy is spreading lies. We need your help. And more than that, please pray. Pray for all the soldiers of the IDF that are risking their lives. Pray for the soldiers of our allies that are now helping in the fight against Iran and all its proxies. Pray for wisdom to our leaders. also in your countries, and pray for the hostages to return to their homes and be reunited with their loved ones. And let's unite in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.